Hello and welcome to Brockley News, Radio Brockley's weekly show, keeping you up to date with all you need to know about what's happening in and around the hospital, along with the latest from local charities and hospital staff. I'm Alan Joyce, and coming up tonight we'll be hearing from 18-year-old Ben Gow, who's been working at the very heart of the Syrian refugee crisis in Lesbos. He'll be telling us about how he saved every penny to help those on the edge of desperation over the next half an hour. It's quite a powerful interview coming up. Then at 7:30, your chance to win some Radio Brockley goodies without leaving your bed on Bedside Bingo. David Rouch will be calling out the numbers and giving you the chance to win. Then at 8 o'clock tonight, it's all your choice of tunes on the Sunday Request Show tonight with Marge Walker. So stay tuned to London's longest running hospital radio station, your number one recuperation station. It's Radio Brockley. So last year we interviewed a lady called Melanie Gow, who told us all about an incredible journey she made with her two sons through the Pyrenees. You can hear that amazing interview on our YouTube site at youtube.com/Radio Brockley. Well, one of the sons who joined her on that journey is Ben Gow, who's been making an inspirational journey of his own to Lesbos to help Syrian refugees. He came in to tell us more about it with our reporter Ron Laver.
With me in the studio today is Ben Gow. Ben is a volunteer with an organisation called Northern Lights Aid, a Norwegian group working on the island of Lesbos in Greece. Ben says, like many of you, I imagine, I'd heard of the refugee crisis, but when I started thinking of volunteering, I wondered, was I really needed? I'm not a medic, I don't have any management experience, or other things I imagined were useful. Of himself, Ben says, I write a bit. I'm interested in telling stories of social justice. I've taken masterclasses in frontline journalism. I've done an internship at a TV company and a local paper and worked a minimum wage job in a kitchen. I'm 18. What do I know? I don't have any answers. I'm trying to figure out the question. Welcome, Ben, and thanks for giving your time to us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'd say that's quite a modest account of yourself, really.
Okay.
Because I know your mother. And for those of our listeners, our regular listeners, you may remember last year I talked to Ben's mum, Melanie Gow, and Melanie, with Ben and her other son, your younger brother, walked for 33 days over the Pyrenees and across Spain for 800 kilometres. I know also that you travelled previously to that with your mum and your brother in Africa, India, Australia, US, all around the world. And because I've interviewed your mum and we've spoken, I know she's a very inspirational lady. Yes. And in some ways, I'm not surprised to hear you're doing what you're doing, right, because I think some of that must rub off. Do you think that's a fair comment?
I do feel that the travelling that I've done, more recently the Camino de Santiago, the 800 kilometres that I walked, have helped me develop as a human being. And it has helped me see different worlds that you don't see from home. So when I'm doing the 97 hours on trains in India, I see these lives where the kids are trouserless and they're making fuel out of cowpat, and you realise, okay, Santa doesn't come everywhere in the world. And so it's interesting when you see that and you can kind of go, okay, I understand these other lives. And so when Greece came up as an option, I was like, this is perfect. This is everything that I've ever wanted to do.
What made you, what gave you the impetus, I guess, to think, I want to go out there and help, I want to do something?
Well, I suppose it all started when I was studying politics for A-levels at school. This is the sort of thing that we talk about, social cleansing, the housing crisis, bombing in Syria, Ebola, and refugees. And so when this sort of first came up, it was a little bit of an inkling. It didn't really come up as a big issue for me. But then when I started delving into it, you realise just how many people are being displaced and just how many people are being thrown out of their homes. And then just how many people are going through this small little island in Greece called Lesbos. And as I said, I didn't think I would be useful. I'm not a medic. I'm not a project manager. But I just decided that how can I tell people what's right and what's wrong if I'm not standing up and fighting for it for myself? So I just cashed in my grandfather's saving and I just turned up on the beaches of Lesbos, walking the talk, really.
That's interesting you say that, because I saw that in your little write-up, and that's another phrase I can hear your mother say.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Rubbing off inspiration,
Yeah, absolutely. So you were a student. Were you working at the time before you went out there?
I was doing my minimum wage job in the kitchen,
right.
Which has helped me fund it a little bit. But it was very much just sort of like, when I found out about it, it was very quick. Within 2 weeks of me really deciding that I was going, I was there. Yeah.
Because you're out there as a volunteer.
Yes, I am out there for a volunteer.
Unpaid.
Unpaid completely.
So you've got to get out there. You've got to live while you're out there, and that's where your grandfather's money came from. I guess money he'd left you. I guess.
Yes, yeah, it was a small amount of money that it was what he had, but it was everything that I needed, because it was just enough just to take me there and to fund me for that first month. And then luckily enough, I'd built up enough of a support for a lot of people to go, no, we want you going back out there, and they gave me a little bit of extra money so I could go back and do 2.5 months there now.
Okay, so what was it like when you first went out there? Presumably you went out on a normal flight, EasyJet or something like that. Landed in Greece, which lovely part of the world.
Absolutely.
We all go there for holidays. What did you find when you got there? What was your first impressions?
Well, in fact, I turned up and I signed up with the organisation that I was with, and they put me on shift the first day I was there. And that first shift was the watchtower. And it starts at 6 o'clock in the morning, because that's when you can first see light. And you're up there and you sort of strut in there and you realise this is a hotel balcony with a telescope on it. And you can see all the way to Turkey. It's only 4 kilometres. You can see people loading boats and coming across. So you're up there and you're looking out and you feel like a super spy, because you're looking through really high-powered telescopes and thermal vision. And so we'd done that, and then we were later on that day we were on the night shift. Because boats come around 24/7, they always arrive. And by the time we'd gotten into our car and we started driving down the road that runs along the shore, we were already met by 4 boats at pitch black, because there aren't any street lights. And so these 4 boats had arrived, and the only way you can see them is through your car headlights. And you see these silhouettes of people splashing water into their faces as they finally hit dry land again. And in these silhouettes, I saw this man bent double. He was carrying a backpack that was just drenched in water and was dripping all over him. So as you do, you go over and you shoulder it for him. And you take him and you realise that he's a grandfather of a family of 5. He's 70 or 80 years old. So the first thing I have to do, you have to sit down. So we sit him down with his family and make sure he's okay. And I look away for a second and I turn back and he is shaking uncontrollably, to the point where a medic says, he's going into hypothermia, and if you don't do anything, he's going to die. And so I just start stripping off what I can, taking off the wet clothes that he's got, and trying to replace it with whatever I have. And I don't have a men's jacket. I have a women's quilted jacket that doesn't fit him at all. But I have to put it on because that's all I have. And I don't have any gloves. So I put socks on his hands. And we didn't have a hat for him, so one of the volunteers took it off and put it on him. And we just slowly started to warm his core back up. And once he was stable and once his family was okay, we loaded him into a car and moved him to a transit camp slowly. And we got him out there and we just gave him hot sweet tea and biscuits just over and over again until he was just starting to feel his fingers again. And then once his family was okay and they were all settled in, we were able to pick them up and move them back into the car and drive them all the way up the hill, which is usually a 40-minute walk, all the way up the hill to a transit camp where they can finally get a bus. But it being 2 o'clock in the morning, there aren't any buses that run, so they have to stay overnight in this huge warehouse hangar, which is just echoing with children's crying voices. And you sit this man down with his family, and his brother comes up to me, puts out his hand and shakes my hand. And that is the first time I've had my hand shaken. I've had it shaken in politeness, I've had it shaken in greeting, but that is the first time I've had my hand shaken.
Wow, I mean, that's quite a baptism, isn't it?
Baptism by fire, absolutely.
Literally, first night there, bang, and it all sets off, which I guess it does every night. And
you realise why you're there.
Yeah.
And then it's just sort of your daily routine.
And was that the point? Rather nice, I think, the synergy there between your grandfather's money,
yes,
getting you out there,
absolutely,
and the first person you help is a grandfather. could be your own grandfather if
Absolutely.
circumstances were different. I think that's quite nice synergy, that. But what's the situation like out there in terms... Does this happen 24 hours a day? Is it just at night? I mean, I find it quite incredible. You said you can see them leaving Turkey.
Absolutely.
You know they're coming.
The distance in water is only 4 kilometres, so you can see them with your own eye as they come across.
And what sort of craft are they coming across in?
It's an emergency dinghy, and it's supposed to fit maybe 10 to 15 people at most, but you have 50. And you have men and women and children, newborns to, old age, and they then also have their baggage inside. So it is just this overcrowded, sinking dinghy that is always filled sort of shin high with water as it comes across.
It sounds, I mean, from your brief description there of getting them off the beach onto the next part, up the hill on the bus, into a reception centre. You sort of sitting here at home, you sort of imagine that, that's all there waiting for them. But it sounds like it's all a little bit chaotic. I mean, the Greek people and the various agencies are all working there, but in a way it sounds very uncoordinated, and it's very much, it just sort of happens.
I mean, the sort of the government officials are there, they're in the south and they're registering them. But the entire beach response and the entire sort of system of moving them down to the south and all that is entirely run by volunteers, entirely run by NGOs. It's the new sort of, we're the humanitarian response to this European crisis. And it has, it was very much in the summer when they had, loads of boats coming over, and it was, you had a few people there. But it has grown into this really good interconnected system. In fact, when I'm working at the Watchtower, there's a WhatsApp group, and that WhatsApp group is communicating with the other one. So I can tell everyone in the north that there is a boat coming in here. And then the camps who are making tea can get the tea, ready. And the people who are running the buses can get a bus down there. And the people with the transport that run up and down the road can be there when they need to be. So it has really developed really quickly. When communication does work, it works fantastically.
Social media again. So often in these sort of situations, these days, a few years ago it wasn't there, but these days social media sort of is bringing it all together. It's fantastic.
Absolutely, everything is run through Facebook. Everyone has the Messenger app, and they all just send little messages out like that way. And everyone's on a Facebook group, and so they chat on there. And then there's one big page for volunteers to talk about and ask questions and things. So it's all run on Facebook.
Just as well, there's a good signal, isn't there?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, part 2 of that amazing interview coming up just very shortly. This is Radio Brockley, though. You're tuned in to Brockley News. Coming up after me at 7:30, your chance to win some goodies on Bedside Bingo. Good luck if you're playing along. Hopefully the patient reps will be up with you very shortly, if they're not there already. And then at 8 o'clock tonight, all your choice of tunes on the Sunday Request Show with Marge Walker. Meanwhile, let's rejoin Ben and Ron.
Back in the summer, it was very much in the spotlight. The media attention was on it. It was on the TV day and night. In recent weeks, not so much. I mean, I know there's a lot of other things going on related to Syria and how to stop it and, try and settle the situation. But in terms of the refugees coming over, you don't turn on the telly every night and see on the news more people, crowds of people walking up railway tracks, coming in on beaches. Has the volume of people coming across died down? Or has it stayed? What is the situation? Obviously you've got a limited experience,
absolutely.
But
I am only on one island, so I can only give my opinion of that.
Yeah.
But I suppose the reason for why the refugee crisis, certainly on Lesbos, was because there were people dying in the water. And luckily, and I'm hoping that's the reason why it's come off the news, is because there are less and less people dying. And that is because we have this fantastic interconnected system where we can spot someone, we can see that they're in trouble, and the lifeguards are like a pit stop team. They are there, they're getting people out of the water, then they're straight on land. So I feel that maybe, and hopefully that's the reason why it's off the news, but it is still very much there. It's the same volume of people is coming over. And we have this threat of them leaving the Schengen agreement with Greece if they don't cut the number of refugees coming over by 50%. And so a lot of a lot of the Syrians or any of the refugees are saying that this is their last opportunity to come across. So in fact, we're seeing numbers rise because this is their last chance when borders are still open.
I mean, you say stopping them coming over. Are people... See, my impression are these people are just rolling up on the beach in Turkey, if you like, getting whatever boats they can and setting off. You make it sound a little bit there that they're actually like the government in Turkey or people in Turkey are putting them in the boats and are sending them off.
I mean, the whole refugee route is run by smugglers. So they arrive in Turkey and in Izmir or wherever, and they meet up with a smuggler, and the smuggler then hides them in the forest until a day when they can send them over in this dinghy. And they each pay, upwards of, 1,500 each just for themselves, without their baggage or without, their children with them. And so it is, on a day when it's really rocky waves, people are still coming across because the smugglers will put you in a boat and send you across. And so every day is unpredictable to tell when people are coming across because there's no one to tell us when someone is.
So if they're working on an agreement to stop so many coming across, how is that going to be? How is that going to be enforced or monitored? If they're basically being, it's criminal activity, isn't it?
It is.
People are taking large amounts of money off them in their misfortune and throwing them in boats, overcrowded, not suitable for the purpose, etc. So how is that? How can you see that being stopped if there is agreement that says, right, Europe can't take any more. We've got to settle the crisis in Syria, and the people have got to, stay in their own country. How are we going to stop that?
Well, I suppose on a micro level, what all that we can do is we're morally and legally obligated just to save the person that's in front of you.
Yeah.
You change their socks and you give them water and all that. But in the big picture, I feel like we're doing everything wrong. It's like what we did wrong with the war on drugs. We're dealing with where we're dealing at the borders. We're not dealing at where it's coming from. And closing a border won't stop people coming to that border. If we deal with it where it's the demand of refugees to leave, if we can solve that issue there, these people want to go back home, as you would, I imagine, if you were sort of kicked out of your home and thrown off, across the borders and into other countries, you want to go back home. Funnily enough, this is always something that sort of rocked my brain a little bit. This smuggling system is horrible, but it is a service that's needed that no one else is providing. It's such a strange idea, but I suppose it's going to be a really interesting time because we've got these now NATO ships which are going to come in, and any people they pick up will be sending back to Turkey. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops over time. And
for those people, that doesn't sound like a great deal, does it?
No.
They probably wish they'd missed the boats and come out and landed on your beach. But okay, so you work for a company called Northern Lights Aid. Northern Lights Aid, yeah. What can you tell me about the organisation? I mean, how did it start? Did it start specifically around this crisis? So we were part of another organisation, and we just sort of developed into this new one. So we've sort of old coordinators and people, sort of old people who'd been there for a while, started this new group called Northern Lights Aid. And we have essentially we run 2 transit camps are our main focus, and they're a warm, dry place on the beach where when refugees come off the boats can go and wait rather than sitting out, exposed to nature. They can get warm, they can cook their own food if they'd like, they can have a shower for the first time in possibly a month, and have their children just sit inside. But we also run the watchtower as well, which spots boats for the rest of the island. And then we do occasionally, when we have enough people, we go down to the beach and we do beach response. But we are amongst other NGOs as well who are there doing their own roles. They make food, or they run another camp, or they do beach response with us. It's really fascinating and interesting work you're doing. It's important work. When did you first go out there?
At end of November.
End of November, and you came back when?
Just before Christmas. I was told I had to come back for Christmas at least.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what are your plans now?
So I'm going back on Monday, but
Right.
I'm making a detour to Izmir in Turkey, which is where most of the refugees are who can't come across, who can't afford it, are living. And I'm going to be meeting with a group of people who provide sort of aid work, and they supply food and water to people there, but they also do teach them transferable skills. So they teach them English and Turkish, and they also teach them sort of skills they can use to try and integrate themselves into Turkish culture, and so that they can apply for asylum there. Which is, I suppose, in a way, an initiative to try and meet that 50% cut down,
Yeah.
so that we can get people sort of comfortably integrated.
But then after that, you're going back to Greece.
I'm only there for a week, and then I'll be returning back to Lesbos.
Do you see a day when, I think we all hope there's a day when these boats stop coming?
I hope there's a day when I'm not needed anymore.
Would you see yourself going back to somewhere like Turkey and carrying on that work?
I certainly feel that I've developed this love for humanitarian work. So when this ends, whether I'm going off to Turkey to try and solve an issue there, or I'm going to Africa to build schools, I feel that this is really where I've found my roots and really where I love sort of working with.
I was going to ask you, actually, you mentioned about them being taught English before they come across. I'm guessing not many people speak English who land on the beach in the middle of the night.
I mean,
how do you cope with that? And I guess there are a lot of European people, not just English but French, Germans, Spanish, etc., who also don't speak their language.
No, I mean it is when you find a doctor that speaks Arabic or speaks Farsi, they're a gold mine, so you hang on to them. But there are absolutely from every country, not just from Europe, but from around the world, who come and help. And I suppose, just like anyone's second language, it's a bit iffy. And when they come across, they can sort of international sign language you learn quite quickly.
Yeah.
For an example, me and a volunteer, we arrived at a beach and it was 2:00 in the morning, and about 50 people had arrived, and it was pitch black, and you just sort of. It is a little bit scary when you have this many people. It's 2:00 in the morning, and they all need something, but you can't quite communicate with them. But you just you step back, you take a breath, and you just go, right, I'm going to find the one person that speaks really good English, because there always seems to be that. And so you ask, does anyone speak English? And when you do find that person, you work through it, and you get everyone safely and calmly to where they need to be, and you fit the needs that everyone needs. So it is really easy when you find that. Or it's interesting when you find that one person who does speak English, because you can start to understand what everyone's stories are as well.
Yeah. Do they, when they arrive, are they nervous? Are they nervous of what you're there for? I mean, are they sort of come up thinking, oh, here are people to save me, or is part of their or is this another problem for them, thinking, well, is this person just going to turn the boat around and push us back out to sea again? Is there an element of that, or are they generally just, they know you're a friendly face and
I mean, we always try and make it, as friendly as possible. We always have smiling faces, always waving to them, always saying, salam and welcome.
Yeah. And you're not carrying guns, and you're not looking threatening. You're not in military uniform, so I guess that helps.
And a lot of them come across, and they're, when they see that their kids are okay and they've got a lollipop in their mouth and they're strutting around all happy and smiley faces, they sit down, they take a breath, and they tell you your story, or tell you their story. And we had, this doctor who 3 days ago had been working in his hospital, and gunmen had come in and killed 5 of his colleagues. And he didn't have the ability to go home and pick up his family. He just cleared his desk and left. And so when he was sitting here and he was going, back home, I'm saving people, I'm respected, and here I'm nothing. And being completely taken away by that, all I could muster was, no, here, you're human. And at that moment, he took a breath and went, okay, today I'm okay. Today I'm safe. So that's when you have a moment when these people go, okay, I'm at home.
Well, you're obviously doing some really much needed work out there, Ben, and it sounds like you're well suited to it as well. You've got, well, it's not the sort of thing everyone can do. It takes a certain sort of person just to throw themselves into something like that. But no, but what I wanted to ask you was, if there's anyone listening who thinks, A, I'd like to do that, or B, I can't do that, but how else can I help? What can you tell us? First of all, if someone thinks, I'd like to do what Ben's done, how would you advise, and do they need to get in touch with one of these agencies first?
I mean, it is obviously more comfortable if you've talked to someone before you've come across, so we're always open on Facebook, and Northern Lights Aid does have a really fantastic Facebook page with lots of information on it. And when new volunteers do come over, we spend an entire day introducing them to the whole system. We take them on a big tour of the island, and we always pair them up with people who know what they're doing. So you're never lost. You've always got someone there you can ask a question for. And even if you can only do a week or a weekend, you've got off work, please come and join us. It's really fantastic. We've always need the help. But obviously, if you'd like to help from home, gather your community up. Get some socks gathering up and send them with someone who's going. There's funding people who are going out there is another really good way to help, because as a community in Greece, obviously, Greece is struggling with it as well. Economically, we always try and spend money there on the island. We give a little back to the community that's supporting the refugees themselves. So when we buy oranges for people on the beaches, we've bought them from a local produce place. If this isn't your cup of tea, you don't feel like the refugee crisis is something that particularly connects with you, just do something that you believe in. Even if it's the homeless people at home, you go to a soup kitchen and just help for a day. Just stand up and fight for something that you believe in.
Great. Well, it's been really interesting talking to you. You've certainly. You're very inspired by it. You're very passionate about it, and that's fantastic. And I'm sure you're doing some great work out there, and long may it continue.
Thank you,
Ben Gow. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Ben Gow speaking to our reporter Ron Laver there.
The RNOH charity have launched a fundraising project called Make It Possible, and you can help. The campaign hopes to encourage more people to raise money for the much-needed redevelopment of the hospital here in Stanmore, so that we can continue our vital work. You can help people like Sheik, who received world-class spinal care and is now training to become a world champion in athletics. From pioneering breakthroughs to lifelong care, from children to war veterans, with your help we can continue to do invaluable orthopaedic work, rebuilding people's lives. To support the RNOH charity, simply text RNOH30 £5 to 770 to make a donation, or visit the RNOH charity website at rnohcharity.org. You can help make it possible for future patients here at the RNOH.
This is Radio Brockley.
Well, a fantastic interview there, and don't forget, if you want to listen to that again, we'll put it up on our YouTube site. You can follow the links from our website at radiobrockley.org. And if you tune in tomorrow night for Brockley News Extra at 8 o'clock, you'll get another chance to hear our extended interview with Ben's mum, Melanie, who tells us about her incredible journey with her two sons. Don't forget, if there's anything else you want to find out about happening here in the hospital that you want more details on, you can call us on extension 5483, and we'll try and cover it on future editions of Brockley News and Brockley News Extra. Up next then on Radio Brockley, it's Bedside Bingo, your chance to win some goodies. David Rauch will be calling out the numbers. Good luck if you're playing along. And then at 8 o'clock tonight, it's all your choice of tunes on the Sunday Request Show with Marge Walker. Brockley News returns at the same time next week. From me, Alan Joyce. Good night.